Hello, students. Today we will be discussing Israel and the Greek civilization. What we will be trying to learn is the influence of Greek civilization on Israel and the changes brought about by the Greek civilization on the Jews. Okay, so Israel was uh, captured by many civilizations. For examples, like we will be discussing Egyptian civilization was the superpower at one of its prominent times. Then Mesopotamian civilization also, and how Greek civilization lastly came and had it had its grip on this Jews, okay, of Israel. So let us start with the first superpower. What? So Egypt was a superpower at the time of Moses. Okay, before Moses, Egypt was the superpower, and Egypt. If you see in the Bible, there is a story of Joseph. Joseph, who was the youngest son of Jacob. Jacob was a rich merchant, and Joseph was the youngest son. And Joseph, being very much talented, he was envied by his own brothers. He had 10 to 12 brothers. Okay, and these brothers, they um, by doing something, they sold Joseph to a slave seller. Okay, so they sold him to a slave seller, and how the story in the Bible, it is there in Genesis 41. If you see Genesis 41 verses 1 to 36, you will come to know that how Joseph entered into the Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the monarch of ancient Egypt. Okay, Pharaoh is the monarch of ancient Egypt. You can see Pharaoh over here, and here Joseph. Joseph is trying to interpret one of his dreams, Pharaoh's dreams, and Pharaoh is telling to him, "I had a dream, but no one can interpret it. Interpret in a sense, no one can understand it or tell the meaning of it to me. But I have heard that you can interpret that dream for me." So he had that talent, God given talent, to interpret dreams. So that God given talent he had. You can refer to Genesis 41 verse 1 to 36. Okay, this is a prominent story where Joseph is more close to Pharaoh and makes major decision making, because he has Pharaoh trusted him a lot. Okay, and secondly, we have a story where again Egypt is the superpower, and here we see in the story of Moses. Okay, in Exodus 2 9 verse 9 to 10. Most of the time, in the time of Moses, you can see 10 commandments, the book of law originated at that point of time. So at that point of time, Egypt influenced all the thought processes. Egypt was the superpower. So based on Egypt used to um, control the most of the things. Okay, so this was regarding Egypt as the superpower. We will proceed further. Okay, we will see the next superpower which influenced Israel. Okay, so this is the first superpower. Egypt was the first superpower which influenced Israel at the time of Moses. We can see that in Genesis and Exodus also. Okay, where Egypt is the superpower. Now going to the next superpower, Azirians. Okay, Azirians were a country nearby Israel. Okay, at the time of David, King David, you can see King David's photo over here. Okay, King David. Okay, at the time of King David, there were 12 tribes. Okay, 12 tribes. So the 12 tribes names are mentioned over here. Okay, there were 12 tribes and they were one country. Okay, so these 12 tribes fought amongst themselves and there was a split. Okay, this split occurred at the time of Jeroboam. Okay, at that time Jeroboam was there, the great grandson of King David. Okay, great grandson of King David, and Jeroboam at that time the split happened, wherein Israel was split up and Jeroboam was the king of Israel. Okay, and the southern part, this is the northern part. The northern part was called Israel at the time of the split, and the king was Jeroboam. And the southern part, you can see that there is a different king in, and that place was called Judah. So these 12 tribes were split into two different countries already. Okay, one southern part was called Judah. It had a separate king, and the northern part had a separate king. Now, at that time, these two kings used to pay some amount to the foreign superpowers not to attack them. So one of the superpower was Azirian. So Assyrians, what they did, they used to take this money. Okay, so once many times they tried to attack Israel. So they attacked Israel, and finally Israel fell. Okay, it fell near about 722 BC. Okay, that time it fell, and fell in a sense it got defeated, and Assyrians, they reigned over this part of Israel, the northern part. Northern part they captured. Okay, Assyrians, they influenced um, Jews, the Israelites, the Jews, after capturing them. Okay, so there they conquered them. They exerted the influence on Israel after capturing them. Okay, so we have discussed the first superpower was Egypt, that exerted influenced uh, the Jews of Israel, and the second superpower was Assyrians. Okay, Assyrians was the second superpower. Now we will go to the third superpower. The third and the fourth superpower, they were the major superpowers. Mesopotamians are a separate area in which there was a city called Babylon. So they are called Babylonians as well as Mesopotamians. Okay, so the Mesopotamians conquered the Jews and sent them to exile. Okay, in Babylon for near about 70 years. We have made a separate video on that. You can watch that video. Okay, now this was near about 586 BC, and after that Babylonian army was defeated by the Persian Persian army. So Persia, they became the superpower, and the Persian army defeated the Babylonian army, and the Persians influenced Israelites culturally and politically. So Jews, they had Jews as captive. What they did is that they sent these Jews back to their home country Israel, because at the time Mesopotamians, when they captured the Jews at that point of time before Persians attacking Babylonian army, Mesopotamians, what they did is they captured Israel, and they conquered Israel, and they took forcefully whosoever Jews are there, most of the Jews, and they sent them to exile in Babylon. Okay, for more than 70 years. So the Jews had to be were forcefully taken outside Israel, and they lived near about 70 years in a foreign country uh, in Mesopotamian region, Babylon, for 70 years. And when Persian army attacked and defeated the Babylonian army, it also conquered the Israelites also. So they asked Jews, the Israelites, to return back to their homeland. Okay, so Persians also influenced the Israelites culturally. So we have seen four cultures, right? Four civilizations. One was the Egyptian civilization, then was the Mesopotamian civilization, then the Persian civilization, and before Mesopotamian civilization, we had seen the Azirians also. So, for civilization, it influenced the Greek culture. Now we will proceed further and see one more prominent one, and that is the topic for our day, is the Greek influence of on the Jews. So we had quickly given a brief overview on what all cultures influenced um, the Greek culture, the Jews of Israel. Now we will be specifically seeing the Greek influence on Jews. Okay, so the Persians were defeated by the Roman forces, who are the who are in the Greek army itself. Okay, so Persians got defeated by the Roman soldiers. So Greek civilization ascended under the under the influence of Alexander the Great. You can see the picture of Alexander the Great over here. Okay, so this is okay, the picture of Alexander the Great. And at the time of Jesus Christ, Romans were the superpower. Okay, so Romans or the Greeks were the global superpower. They had captured they had captured Israel and neighboring countries. So Greeks were the superpower, or we can call them Romans also. Now, the Greek civilization deeply influenced the Holy Bible. This is a very important part, and how it influenced the Holy Bible we will be seeing in the next slide. Okay, how it influenced the Holy Bible. Now, coming to the second point, Greek civilization also influenced Hebrew. Hebrew means Jewish and Christian traditions. Whosoever followed Christ were called Christian, and whosoever were following Jewish culture were called Hebrews. So, Hebrew and Christian traditions were influenced by the Greek civilization. Okay, and Greek civilization also influenced Jewish practices, beliefs, and rituals. Like Jewish people had many practices, for example, circumcision and so on and so forth. So that also were influenced by the Greek culture. Okay, many thinking school of thoughts were also opened at that point of time. So education wise, everything Greeks gave sufficient freedoms for all religions. So one of the religion was Jewish religion. They also gave sufficient space for them also. So all the cultures, including Jewish practices, beliefs, and rituals, were also influenced by the Greek culture. Then the Greek culture influenced the Jewish language also. Okay, because the language, why? Because Greeks insisted that their Greek language should be prominently spoken in Israel. So Jewish people left their Hebrew language and they were more focusing on Greek languages. Okay, so Greece had captured the territory Israel, and they influenced they imposed their own language to be spoken in Israel. Okay, and when the books were compiled, you can see it had a Greek culture influence. At that time, if for example at the time of Alexander the Great, if you are writing any kind of books, it had some kind of Greek influence on that. So based on the Greek influence, we'll come to know that it was written at the time of Alexander the Great or during the capture of the Romans on Israel. Okay, so these were the very brief points. Now, the influence of Greek civilization on Jews, we will be specifically talking about Jews in a sense, Israel. Israelites were called Jews. Okay, So now we will be discussing that. Okay, the influence of Greek civilization on the Israelites. So at the end of the 4th century BC, before Christ, Emperor Alexander conquered Israel. Okay, around it was around 4th century. At the end of that, Israel and the neighboring countries. This we had already said previously. So the Greek language and the culture were imposed in a sense, were forcefully were forcefully imposed on the Israelites. They didn't have they didn't have the freedom to choose, because their dictators were Greeks and they wanted Jews to speak in Greek language. So they forcefully imposed the Greek culture on the Jews or the Israelites. Then the freedom of Jews in terms of worship was decreased at the point when Greeks uh, captured Israel. So they didn't give sufficient freedom for the Jews to worship. Okay, and then under the influence of Greeks, the Jews drifted away from the commandments, the 10 commandments given by Moses. And as told you earlier, there were some rituals like circumcision. Circumcision is done by males. Okay, males, they do circumcision. Okay, whosoever are Jews. So that is the ritual followed by is from the time of Moses. So from the time of Moses, Jews used to practice this circumcision. Jewish forms of worship, there were different forms of Jewish worship. It was curtailed, it was decreased. Then the observation of Sabbath were also influenced by the Greek. People were now not observing Sabbath. Sabbath is the day wherein Jews go to the synagogue and they just read the holy scriptures. Okay, they only at that single day they only read scriptures and they meditate at the synagogue. So that observation of Sabbath was also decreased. Then fidelity is the commitment of one partner to another in marriage. So that also was affected. People started marrying many other persons. So one person marrying many other people. So it influenced their married life also. So this also created many problems. Okay. So these culturally, the Jewish people also got influenced. Now we will be discussing what is Pentateuch. Okay, what is Pentateuch is exactly Torah itself. Torah is Torah. So what is Pentateuch? I will try to explain that first. Pentateuch is a penta in a sense in Greek. Greek it is penta means it is 5. Okay, so you can see over here penta means 5. Now tuque in a sense, tuque is an instrument used, you can see in this picture, tuque is an instrument used to rotate the holy scriptures, you can see. So that is a tool. Okay, that tool is called tuque. So what is written on that papyrus? Papyrus is a skin, dry skin of a goat, on which olden times people used to write. Okay, so they used to write on the goat skin or papyrus. So papyrus is you can see is encircled around the tuque, and on the tuque is what is there is around the tuque is the Torah. Okay, Torah is the what all things Moses had captured is mentioned in the Torah. Okay, that is a Hebrews call it Torah. Okay, or it can be called Pentateuch. So the first 5 books in the holy Hebrew Bible, Hebrew Bible is Torah or Pentateuch. Okay, Hebrew Bible is called Torah or Pentateuch. Then the Hebrew Bible is a religious text. Okay, in biblical Hebrew. So in Hebrew language it is written. And Septuagint is the same text. The Hebrew Bible is translated into Greek. Okay, the same Hebrew Bible which Hebrews had used as Torah is translated into Greek language. Okay, so Greek language, it was translated. Okay, so and Septuagint, why it is called Septuagint is that because 70 or 72 scholars took part in the translation process. It was during the rule of King Ptolemy. PT is silent, Ptolemy too. Okay, so when you pronounce this word, it is Ptolemy. Okay, King Ptolemy, and PT is silent. Okay, so we in this slide what we have discussed is that we had discussed what is Pentateuch. Okay, what is Pentateuch we had discussed. Then we had seen what is Hebrew Bible and what is Septuagint. So Septuagint is the same as Hebrew Bible. Hebrew Bible is written in Hebrew and Septuagint is written in Greek. Okay, so we Orthodox and certain other denomination, they give more priority to Septuagint because based on the Septuagint we have our holy liturgy and other things. So the Mosaic law, you can see over here, the Mosaic law, the 10 commandments given by the Moses is called Mosaic law, and this Mosaic law was the foundation of Israel. Israel as a nation and as a religion was bounded by Moses' law. So Moses' law is what is mentioned in the Torah, and it was mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. And Hebrew Bible was converted into Septuagint, and when it was converted into Greek language, it had been called Septuagint because it was prepared by the 72 or 70 scholars. Okay, so in um, Greek language, Septuagint is 70 or 72. Okay, so this is the short description of what we have learned. So in this, we had learned that there were many influences like the Greek translation, um, like the Bible. For example, the Bible was translated at this point of time when Greeks captured the Jewish people, and so this was during the invasion of Alexander's invasion. So the Greek denomination had reached its zenith at the 2nd century BC, the last phase of the Greek influence. So here till 2nd century before Christ, the Greeks had tremendous influence on the Jewish people, Israelite. So this is the short description of the 4th chapter, Israel and the Greek civilization. This was mentioned in very short terms. So we have discussed the key points, the important points. Okay, thank you so much for watching.